Have you ever felt your emotions completely take control unexpectedly today? In that moment, even logic seems to disappear from your mind. Your heart races, your thoughts scatter, and decisions become harder instantly. This is where emotional regulation becomes your most powerful hidden skill. Most people underestimate how emotions silently shape every single decision daily. Under pressure, the mind often reacts faster than it can think. That reaction usually leads to regret, confusion, or unnecessary stress afterward. Imagine staying calm when everything around you feels completely out of control. That ability is not luck, but a trainable mental discipline anyone develops. Emotional regulation is not about suppressing feelings, but understanding them deeply. When emotions rise, they act like waves crashing inside your mind. Without control, those waves can completely overwhelm your judgment and clarity. Think about moments when anger made you say something you regretted later, or times anxiety stopped you from taking an important life opportunity. These moments reveal how powerful emotions are over human behavior daily. Yet most people never learn how to properly manage emotional pressure. They simply react rather than pause and observe their internal state. This lack of awareness becomes the root of many life struggles. Emotional regulation starts with noticing what you feel without judgment. That awareness alone can completely change how you respond under pressure. Picture a calm lake reflecting everything clearly, even during a storm. That calmness is what emotional mastery feels like in real life. But achieving it requires consistent mental training and self-observation practice daily. Many people think calm individuals are naturally born that way. In reality, they have trained their minds through repeated emotional awareness. Pressure does not disappear for them, but their response changes completely. Instead of reacting instantly, they create space between stimulus and response. That small space is where true emotional power actually lives quietly. Without that space, emotions directly control actions without any reflection, and that leads to decisions driven by fear instead of clarity. Emotional regulation gives you back control over your internal world. It allows you to stay grounded when everything feels chaotic outside. Most successful individuals share this one hidden mental skill consistently. They do not avoid pressure, but they manage it effectively always. Understanding this difference can completely transform how you handle daily challenges. Even in conflict, they remain composed, while others lose control quickly. This does not mean they feel less emotions than others do. It means they understand emotions deeply without becoming controlled by them. Emotional regulation is the bridge between chaos and clear thinking. Without it, even small problems can feel overwhelming and unbearable. With it, even massive challenges feel manageable and structured logically. This skill quietly determines success in relationships, career, and personal growth. Yet very few people actively train or develop this ability intentionally. Most assume emotional control is automatic, but it requires practice. The first step always begins with awareness of emotional triggers. Once you identify triggers, you can begin controlling your reactions. That control slowly builds resilience against stressful situations over time. Emotional regulation is not about being emotionless or robotic in life. It is about responding wisely instead of reacting impulsively under pressure. This distinction is what separates calm thinkers from chaotic reactors. Every stressful moment becomes a training ground for emotional strength development. The more you practice, the stronger your mental stability becomes gradually. Eventually, pressure stops controlling you and starts shaping your growth. That transformation begins with understanding your emotional patterns deeply today, because without awareness, there can be no meaningful emotional control ever. Your emotions are not your enemies, but signals for understanding yourself. Learning to read those signals is the foundation of emotional mastery, and once mastered, your entire life experience begins to shift positively. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable and even predictable over time. This is where the real journey of emotional regulation truly begins. Picture a young professional sitting in a meeting under intense pressure today. The room is silent and all eyes are fixed directly on him. His supervisor just asked a question he was not fully prepared for. His heartbeat suddenly increases and his mind starts to feel overloaded. In that moment, panic begins to quietly take control of his thoughts. He knows the answer, but fear blocks his ability to speak clearly. This is where emotional regulation becomes either a strength or a weakness. Some people crumble in such moments, while others remain surprisingly calm. The difference is not intelligence, but emotional control under pressure situations. Now imagine a completely different response in the same exact situation. The same question is asked, but this time, calmness takes priority. The individual pauses, breathes deeply, and organizes thoughts before responding. That small pause completely changes the outcome of the entire situation. Instead of panic, there is clarity, structure, and confident communication present. Emotional regulation creates that pause between stimulus and reaction automatically over time. Without that pause, emotions rush forward and dominate decision-making instantly. Many people mistake pressure for danger, which triggers unnecessary emotional reactions. But pressure is simply a test of mental stability and awareness. Think about athletes performing in the final seconds of a championship game. Their bodies are under extreme pressure, yet their focus remains steady. They do not eliminate emotions, but they channel them into performance. This ability is built through years of mental and emotional training practice. Emotional regulation works exactly the same way in everyday life situations. Whether in meetings, exams, or relationships, pressure always finds its moment. Those who manage emotions effectively always respond with greater clarity and control. Those who fail often react impulsively and later regret their decisions deeply. Imagine two people receiving criticism from the same authority figure today. One immediately reacts with anger, defensiveness, and emotional resistance instantly. The other listens calmly, processes feedback, and responds with thoughtful reflection. Both received the same information, but outcomes are completely different results. Emotional regulation determines whether feedback becomes growth or unnecessary conflict. In stressful environments, emotions often distort reality and exaggerate situations. A small problem can feel like a major crisis without regulation. This distortion happens because the brain prioritizes emotion over logic temporarily. However, trained minds can recognize this distortion before acting on it. That recognition creates space for better and more rational decisions. Now consider personal relationships during emotionally charged disagreements or arguments. Words spoken in anger often damage trust far more than intended. Once spoken, those words cannot be taken back or fully erased. Emotional regulation helps prevent irreversible damage during heated conversations always. It allows individuals to step back before saying something harmful unintentionally. This ability protects relationships from unnecessary emotional destruction and misunderstandings. The more emotionally aware a person becomes, the fewer regrets they experience, because they no longer act from immediate emotional impulse reactions. Instead, they choose responses that align with long-term outcomes carefully. This shift from reaction to response is where true growth begins. Emotional regulation is not about controlling others, but controlling internal reactions. External situations will always remain unpredictable and sometimes overwhelming in life. But internal stability ensures you are never fully controlled by chaos. That stability is what creates confidence, even in uncertain environments. Over time, this skill becomes a natural part of thinking patterns. You stop fearing pressure and start understanding it as information. Each emotional trigger becomes an opportunity to practice awareness and control, and every controlled response strengthens your mental resilience further over time. Eventually, calmness becomes your default state, even in stressful environments. People around you begin noticing your stability during difficult situations. They see composure where others usually show stress or frustration. This difference quietly builds respect and trust in personal and professional spaces. Emotional regulation becomes your invisible advantage in every area of life, and this realization begins to reshape how you view pressure entirely. Most people believe emotional control means suppressing feelings completely in every situation. But suppression actually increases internal pressure and creates long-term emotional instability. The real secret of emotional regulation is not control but awareness itself. Awareness changes everything because it allows emotions to exist without domination. Imagine emotions as visitors entering your mind rather than permanent residents. You acknowledge their presence without allowing them to take control. This shift in perception completely transforms how pressure feels internally. Instead of fighting emotions, you begin observing them like passing weather. Storms of anger or anxiety no longer define your entire mental state. They simply become temporary signals that require understanding and attention. Here is the surprising truth most people never realize about emotions. Emotional intensity is not the problem, but lack of awareness is. When awareness increases, emotional intensity automatically loses its controlling power. This is why highly composed people seem unaffected by stressful situations. They are not emotionless, but deeply aware of emotional patterns unfolding. Think about a person watching waves crash from a distant shore. They see intensity, but remain completely safe and grounded internally. Emotional regulation works the same way in the human mind. You step into the role of observer instead of immediate reactor. This observer mindset creates powerful distance between feeling and action. That distance is where rational thinking becomes fully accessible again. Without it, emotions and actions merge into one uncontrollable response. Most failures under pressure happen because this distance disappears completely. People become their emotions instead of simply experiencing them temporarily. That identification is what creates impulsive reactions and poor decisions. The twist is that emotions are not meant to be controlled strictly. They are meant to be understood, interpreted, and consciously processed instead. Emotional regulation is therefore a skill of interpretation rather than suppression. You learn to read emotions like data rather than threats. Each feeling carries information about your internal state or environment. Anxiety may signal uncertainty, while anger may signal boundary violation. Instead of reacting, you decode the message behind the emotion. This decoding process transforms emotional chaos into structured understanding gradually. Once understood, emotions lose their overwhelming and unpredictable nature completely. This is where true emotional intelligence begins to reveal itself. It is not about never feeling stressed or overwhelmed again. It is about not being controlled by those feelings anymore. Even highly successful individuals still experience fear and doubt regularly. The difference is their response system is trained and intentional. They do not deny emotions, but integrate them into decision-making. Emotional regulation becomes a dialogue between feeling and logic. Instead of conflict, there is cooperation between mind and emotion. This cooperation leads to wiser choices under extreme pressure situations. Now consider how this applies during unexpected life challenges suddenly. A crisis does not give time for overthinking or preparation. Your emotional system reacts first before logical thinking catches up. Without awareness training, this reaction often leads to confusion and panic, but with practice, you begin noticing emotions as they arise. That early detection allows you to interrupt automatic reaction cycles. You regain control before emotions fully take over your behavior. This is the hidden power behind emotional mastery under pressure. It is not about eliminating emotional responses entirely from life. It is about reshaping your relationship with those responses deeply. Once this shift occurs, pressure no longer feels threatening or overwhelming. Instead, it becomes a familiar environment for growth and learning. Emotional regulation turns chaos into clarity through simple awareness practice, and this awareness gradually becomes your default mental operating system. You stop fearing emotions and start understanding their purpose clearly. That understanding becomes the real turning point in emotional strength. And it completely changes how you experience pressure forever. Now that you understand emotions, the real challenge is applying control daily. Theory means nothing unless it transforms behavior in real stressful moments. The first practical step is recognizing your emotional triggers early. Triggers are situations that automatically activate strong emotional reactions inside you. It could be criticism, failure, deadlines, or unexpected changes in plans. Once you identify triggers, you begin to regain control over reactions. Awareness always comes before meaningful emotional regulation in any situation. The second step is practicing the pause before responding immediately. This pause is small but powerful enough to change entire outcomes. In that pause, emotions lose automatic control over your actions. Instead, logic and awareness get time to enter decision-making process. Even a 3-second pause can completely shift emotional direction instantly. The third step is controlled breathing during stressful emotional moments. Slow breathing signals your brain that there is no immediate danger. This helps reduce emotional intensity and restores mental clarity quickly. Many people underestimate how breathing influences emotional stability under pressure. Athletes, speakers, and leaders all use breathing to manage emotions. The fourth step is reframing the situation mentally and consciously. Instead of seeing pressure as threat, see it as opportunity. This cognitive shift reduces fear and increases confidence significantly over time. Your brain responds differently when interpretation of events changes consciously. Emotional regulation is deeply connected to how you interpret situations. The fifth step is separating facts from emotional assumptions quickly. Under pressure, emotions often distort reality and exaggerate situations mentally. By focusing only on facts, clarity replaces emotional confusion immediately. This helps prevent unnecessary panic or overreaction in difficult moments. The sixth step is practicing self-observation during emotional experiences regularly. Ask yourself what you are feeling without judging those emotions. This builds emotional distance and reduces impulsive behavior over time. Self-observation creates awareness that strengthens with consistent practice daily. The seventh step is delaying reaction intentionally during emotional spikes. Not every situation requires immediate response or instant decision-making pressure. Delayed response often leads to more thoughtful and effective outcomes. Emotional regulation improves significantly when impulsive reactions are reduced consistently. The eighth step is preparing mentally for high-pressure situations in advance. Visualization helps train your mind to stay calm under stress. When situations feel familiar, emotional reactions become less intense automatically. Preparation reduces uncertainty, and uncertainty is a major trigger of anxiety. The ninth step is accepting emotions instead of resisting them completely. Resistance increases internal conflict and makes emotions stronger over time. Acceptance allows emotions to flow without controlling your behavior directly. You acknowledge emotions without allowing them to dictate actions. The 10th step is reviewing emotional reactions after stressful events. Reflection helps you understand patterns and improve future responses. Each review strengthens your ability to handle similar situations better. Over time, emotional mistakes become learning opportunities instead of failures. This learning cycle builds emotional intelligence gradually and effectively. Emotional regulation is a long-term skill, not a quick fix. Consistency matters more than perfection in developing emotional control abilities. Even small improvements in response create big life changes eventually. Calmness under pressure is built through repetition and conscious effort. Every stressful situation becomes practice ground for emotional mastery. The more you practice, the more automatic calm responses become. Eventually, pressure stops feeling overwhelming and starts feeling manageable. You begin responding instead of reacting in almost every situation. This shift changes how others perceive your confidence and stability. People trust those who remain calm in chaotic environments consistently. Emotional regulation becomes your strongest advantage in professional and personal life. And this advantage silently shapes your success over time significantly, because calm minds always outperform chaotic reactions under pressure situations. At this point, you already understand the power of emotional regulation deeply, but understanding alone never changes life unless action follows immediately. The real question is whether you will apply this knowledge daily, because pressure will not wait for you to become ready someday. It will appear unexpectedly in meetings, relationships, and personal challenges, and in those moments, your response will define your outcome completely. Either emotions will control you, or you will control your emotions. There is no middle ground when pressure takes full control. Emotional regulation is not a luxury skill, it is survival intelligence. It determines how clearly you think when everything feels overwhelming suddenly. It determines how wisely you act when emotions try to dominate. And it determines how stable your life becomes under uncertainty. Imagine two versions of yourself facing the same difficult situation today. One reacts impulsively while the other responds with calm awareness. One creates regret while the other creates solutions and clarity. The difference between them is not talent, but emotional discipline. You are not born calm under pressure, you train yourself into it. Every emotional reaction is an opportunity to improve your awareness. Every stressful moment is a chance to strengthen your mental control. Most people run away from pressure, but growth exists inside it. Emotional regulation teaches you to stay present when others collapse. It gives you space to think when others lose all clarity. That space becomes your greatest advantage in life decisions, because decisions made in calmness are always more accurate and powerful. You do not need to eliminate stress to become strong. You need to learn how to function despite stress existing. This is the real meaning of emotional mastery in life. Start small by noticing your emotions in daily situations today. Do not judge them. Simply observe them as they appear. Then practice pausing before reacting in every emotional moment. That pause will slowly transform your entire decision-making process. Over time, you will notice fewer regrets and better choices. You will respond with calmness, even in unexpected pressure situations, and people will begin noticing your emotional stability naturally. But the real transformation happens inside your own mind quietly. You stop feeling controlled by external events and circumstances. Instead, you begin controlling your internal responses consciously. That shift is where true freedom from emotional chaos begins. Emotional regulation does not remove challenges from your life. It makes you strong enough to face them confidently. It turns fear into focus and confusion into clarity. And it turns pressure into an opportunity for growth. You stop seeing problems as threats and start seeing them as tests. Tests that build your emotional strength and resilience over time. The goal is not perfection, but continuous emotional improvement daily. Even small progress in control creates massive life changes eventually. Calmness becomes your default response instead of panic or fear, and that calmness creates better relationships, decisions, and outcomes overall. You become someone who leads with stability in uncertain moments, someone who thinks clearly when others are emotionally overwhelmed. This is the power of mastering emotional regulation under pressure. Now the responsibility shifts from learning to applying consistently. Because knowledge without action is just wasted potential in disguise. Start practicing emotional awareness in your next difficult situation today. Observe, pause, and respond instead of reacting instantly every time. With repetition, this will become your natural way of thinking. And slowly, your entire life experience will begin to transform. You will no longer fear pressure, but understand it deeply, because calm minds always create powerful outcomes under pressure situations. And that is where real emotional strength truly begins in life. Now that the journey is complete, the real work begins today. Emotional regulation is not something you learn once and forget. It is a daily practice that shapes your entire mindset over time. Every new day brings fresh emotional challenges and unexpected pressure moments. And each moment silently tests your ability to stay composed inside. You may not always succeed in controlling emotions perfectly at first, but improvement comes through repetition, not instant perfection or shortcuts. Even the strongest minds were once overwhelmed by emotional reactions. They simply chose to practice awareness again and again consistently. Emotional strength is built in small moments, not grand achievements alone. A single pause can sometimes prevent a lifetime of regret. A single calm response can completely change the direction of conflict. That is the hidden power of emotional regulation in daily life. You are constantly shaping your identity through emotional responses daily. Every reaction either strengthens your control or weakens your stability. There is no neutral emotional behavior under pressure situations. You are either growing in awareness or losing control gradually. This truth makes emotional regulation one of the most important skills because life will never stop presenting emotionally challenging situations to you. But you can stop letting those situations control your reactions. Calmness is not the absence of emotion, but mastery over it. You still feel everything deeply, but respond with greater awareness. That balance is what creates emotional intelligence in real life. Without awareness, emotions become automatic drivers of behavior and decisions. With awareness, emotions become information guiding better choices instead. The transformation is subtle at first, but powerful over time. You begin noticing emotional patterns before they fully take over. You recognize anger before it turns into words you regret. You notice anxiety before it stops you from acting. This early awareness gives you control before reactions are formed, and that control becomes your strongest mental advantage in life. Pressure no longer feels like a threat to your stability. Instead, it becomes a signal to apply emotional skills consciously. You begin to trust yourself more in difficult situations gradually because you have evidence of staying calm in past challenges. That trust builds confidence that cannot be easily shaken anymore. Emotional regulation also improves how others perceive your presence. People naturally rely on those who remain stable under pressure. Calm individuals become anchors in emotionally unstable environments. This influence grows quietly, without needing force or attention. True emotional mastery never demands recognition from others. It reflects silently through behavior, choices, and reactions. The more you practice, the less effort it requires consciously. Eventually, calm responses become your automatic way of living. That is when emotional regulation becomes truly internalized deeply. You no longer fight emotions, you understand and guide them. Life becomes less reactive and more intentional in every moment. Even setbacks begin to feel manageable instead of overwhelming, because your mind no longer amplifies stress unnecessarily anymore. You develop clarity, even in the middle of chaos and uncertainty. That clarity becomes your foundation for better decisions consistently. Emotional regulation turns pressure into structured thinking and growth. It reshapes how you interpret every challenge you face daily, and slowly, it reshapes how you see yourself entirely, from reactive to composed, from chaotic to aware, from lost to grounded. This is not just a skill, but a lifelong transformation process, one that continues to evolve with every emotional experience you face. The journey does not end here, it only becomes deeper. Because mastery over emotions is mastery over your entire life experience. And that mastery begins with one simple choice to stay aware.